let me give one bad way to dive in with Enterprise 2.0 and then two good ways. The bad way is to kind of stand up one of these digital emergent social software platforms and then just say to the workforce, here it is, knock yourselves out. Or to say, we want this to be the place where all the knowledge in the organization resides, so why don't you take all the contents of your brain and dump them into this environment in your ample spare time as a knowledge worker. When I've seen either of those two things happen, you tend to get a digital vacant lot after a while. And people go there, they might poke around a little bit initially. It's not clear what they're supposed to do. It's not clear what the use cases are. They don't feel like they have very much time to put the contents of their head into this digital vacant lot. And so it just kind of sits there and does nothing for a while. So this fairly naive approach of if we build it, they will come, we need to get past that fairly quickly. Two good approaches that I've seen. First of all is to fairly tightly identify one pressing knowledge-related or collaboration-related challenge, and then throw a fair amount of resources at addressing it with Enterprise 2.0. So for example, in my book, I talk about the printing company Vistaprint, which was hiring people at a very rapid clip and had a very complex both physical and software infrastructure for their printing facilities. So they're bringing in a lot of young engineers and needed to get them up to speed very quickly on the knowledge of the organization while that knowledge was changing rapidly. So they needed some kind of dynamic knowledge management system, and they settled on good old-fashioned wiki technology. But the leader of that effort made sure that he put an initial structure of the wiki together that had a lot of different links and a lot of relationships between the pages. And then whenever he got an email from a colleague that had content that would be appropriate, he would fire back an email to the originator and say, would you mind just dumping that content in the wiki? Don't worry about making it look good. It doesn't have to be perfectly formatted or pretty. I'll mop up afterward. I just need you to get comfortable with this idea of when I've got knowledge, I'm going to go there first and contribute it. What he found was that over time, as people went there to go dump their knowledge, they also found valuable stuff there. So they started going to the wiki first to learn something, as opposed to knocking on doors or sending out another, who can help me with this email. And he found that little kind of nudge and that very carefully designed effort was enough to get the snowball rolling downhill in a productive way and to turn the wiki in that organization into this very dynamic, very comprehensive knowledge repository for the place. Now, that is a fairly deep dive on a specific knowledge or collaboration related problem, and a lot of companies have had success proceeding that way. We've got a number of case studies there. The other one that I've seen work, which I find really intriguing, is to let people do something that's a lot less well defined, but that lets them satisfy a need that in many cases they didn't even know that they had. So for example, I wrote another case study about a company called Serena Software that basically decided to use not even a private version of Facebook, but Facebook as the social glue for their organization. What they learned, and what again we've seen over and over, is that we people have this very deep-rooted desire to connect with other people, to form these social networks, to form these weak time networks. And if we give them a tool that lets them do that, they tend to jump all over that and be pretty enthusiastic about putting that network together. So even without a lot of heavy lifting, those kinds of technologies, these very broad technologies, not aimed at a specific problem, but aimed at satisfying a deep-seated need, these things can take off fairly quickly. So we see that with social networking software in Enterprise 2.0, and also I think microblogging software like we see on the web with Twitter. We see a lot of equivalents for the enterprise. That can succeed fairly quickly because, again, it definitely satisfies an urge. I didn't know that we had the urge to communicate in 140 character increments. It turns out that we do. This is actually pretty valuable to do. So when we put this technology out there for an organization, you don't have to define a super tight use case. People will start to jump on it and will use it to do whatever they want. And again, the organization benefits from that. So I've seen organizations succeed by being fairly tight and deeply focused on one problem, or being very broad and shallow on let's deploy something that lets people do something they can't do right now and that they value